I see the light. I see the light. Kicking off the 2022 Conscious Life Expo is Shima Moore. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Before I bring Shima up on stage, there are a few friends in my circle that I look up to that center me. Shima's one of them. And I don't want to do this crazy long introduction right now. I want to bring Shima up as soon as I can. But let me say this. She's an ordained minister. She's an organizer of communities. She's been doing this for decades. She is a co-founder of this conference, of the Conscious Life Expo. She's somebody that I'm in contact with all year long. And again, she centers me. She's a bright ray of sunshine. Her presentation today is Attracting Light in a Dark World. With everything that we have gone through, the light is here now, and we're moving forward into that, and I feel it. So I want everybody to give a big, warm welcome to my friend, our friend, the reason why we're here, Shima Moore. Shima?
Thank you, Jimmy. There you go. Yes. All right. Okay, wow. Conscious Life Expo 2022. Well, the last time we were here, we just kind of like made it through. Right, we were here February 2020. How many of you were here 2020? Great. Okay, so you've missed us. I've missed you. We've missed you. Last year we were live streamed, and that was great. And Jimmy did a spectacular job emceeing that. I did an astrology track last year, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful to connect. But there's nothing like walking in the hall, seeing someone, meeting someone for the first time, or seeing an old friend and loving them, putting your arms around them and just feeling their heartbeat, because that's really what it's really all about. You know, Shima comes from a Hopi word that means love. And actually, it's kind of interesting. Shima, Conscious Life Expo, Mount Shasta, where I live and where I was ordained Shima back in 2000, they're all connected. Because that's when Robert Quicksilver and I met, well, a couple years before that, but that's when Shima was born on Mount Shasta, where I now live. And I had been in the consciousness world, the Conscious Expo world, for since like 1997. So I brought him I introduced him. Well, actually, I was doing expos long before that, but it was a wonderful thing to bring him into this world. And together we'd come down to Los Angeles and just make all the plans. And so this has been going on now for many years, almost 20 years. So it's very, very exciting. Let me get a little water here. This is great water, by the way. You know, last year I remember during my astrology panel, I told people, drink this water. Don't drink Crystal Geyser. And I have to say that because Crystal Geyser is bottled in Mount Shasta, but you can't really call it Mount Shasta water. It doesn't have the same life force energy that it has is when you go to the headwaters there and get it yourself or get it from the middle of town. There's a fountain there. So I'm not very much into that particular bottled product, but this is great. This is a specific kind of plastic that doesn't leach into your water, which is a very important thing. Anyway, salud. All right, water, so important. Our friend back there doing the sound, I'm calling him the water element. And I think that's going to be our conversation all week. So 5D Star Portal, what is it? Well, back in about 2013 actually, I was introduced to something we're going to talk about, the Stargate experience. We're going to talk about three things actually primarily today. We're going to talk about the Stargate experience and actually have an experience of that. It's a 12th dimensional experience. And so I hope to give you a little taste of that today. We're going to talk about a magical sacred dance from Bulgaria that I was introduced to a couple of years ago and invited to teach. And that has just been it's an uncovering of just a magical, magical experience. And so I'm going to share some of that with you today. And also, this particular expo, more than any other Conscious Life expo, we have an astrology track. And I have been into astrology for decades. And these days, it's so important for people to know what the heck is going on. And it was so amazing. A couple of weeks ago, I found the DVD from 2020. And it was astounding to listen to the, not so much predictions, but having the finger on the pulse of what was happening. And we are going to have another panel on Saturday, tomorrow, from, I think it's 2:30 to 4:30. And I'm on that panel. I have astrologers coming from as far as Washington, as far as Singapore, as far as Arizona, and then some of our local wonderful astrologers right here from the Southern California area. So I'm so jazzed to have that. And then following that, we're going to have a premiere. And we're going to have a premiere of what started out as a film, and it's been like a 10-year project by Kenny Osabel, who started The Bioneers back in the 90s sometimes. He had Seeds of Change. These people are all kind of, I wish they could have made it this weekend, but you know, the COVID thing really has stopped a lot of people from traveling. So those of you who are here, I applaud you for being here. Those of you watching us live stream, we're so glad to have you with us. And tomorrow night, we're having a premiere of the very first episode of what has morphed into a 10-episode series called Changing of the Gods. And it is based on the work of Dr. Richard Tarnas, who's a Harvard graduate, teaches in San Francisco at the California Institute of Integral Studies. And it's really about the cycles. It's not so much of a personal, like people are really into their horoscope, they're into their chart. What does it mean about me? How's my life going? This is a much broader picture. What's going on in the world? And what kind of a cycle are we in? And if you're not aware of the outer planets and the cycles of what's happening, this is a mind-blowing, documented, academic look at the 60s, before the 60s, but particularly from the 60s to now, and how the cycles have interacted with each other. So you're going to want to be there tomorrow night, 6 o'clock. We're having a free showing of that, followed by another panel discussion on it. And then throughout the weekend, we have Rick Tarnas, who's a master astrologer, and he's going to be he's doing lectures and workshops and post-conferences all day on Monday. So I just wanted to set the tone for you, to let you know that there's this magic happening, that, you know, we've had alternative consciousness, health, UFO, light language, so many things through the years. And now we're kind of like bringing it all together in a way that gives you an explanation for really what works. So anyway, 5D star portal, attracting light in a dark world. So the star portal, whether it's astrology, whether it's the Stargate, or whether it is the paneurythmy, which we're going to see how they all really work together. So whenever I teach in the winter in Mount Shasta. I teach at the, it's cold in Mount Shasta, although it feels like it's been kind of chilly here as well. But in the winter, we go inside into mountain fitness, and I teach sort of like fine-tune. There's 28 movements, and so I fine-tune things there. In the summer, we're outside in nature, just like they do in Bulgaria. And we're going to talk and show a little bit about that today. But I always start with a little blessing. And the blessing is something that people really love, and they like to use it whenever they're out in nature, or even I used it when I came to the hotel, because there are all these invisible beings with us at all times. So this is about acknowledging them and really having gratitude for them being here. So I'll say it once, and then you can say it with me if you like. And it's, "O kindly luminous beings, guardians of this place, thank you for your hospitality, and may God bless you." And what I like to do is invite people to say, if that is uncomfortable for you, may the goddess bless you, may spirit bless you, whatever really works for you. But generally, people are comfortable. But I like to give you that possibility. And so if you think of saying this with your hand on your heart and opening up and feeling the energy, and just, if you'd like to say it with me, "O kindly luminous beings, guardians of this place, thank you for your hospitality, and may the goddess bless you." And we say it 3 times, and we do it in a circle. "O kindly luminous beings, guardians of this place, thank you for your hospitality, and may God bless you." And let's see here. Oops. I think I'll leave that. Maybe. Oops. Now I really messed up. Okay. And the 3rd time, "O kindly luminous beings, guardians of this place, thank you for your hospitality, and may God bless you." So when you go out in nature and you feel all that magnificence, give it a try. It's such a simple thing. And if you just remember the "O kindly luminous beings," the rest just comes really quite naturally. Okay, well whoops, how did I lose my signal here? But I lost the signal also. My slide. Let's see here. La, 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 la. That's a very beautiful spot. You would say that there, right? "O kindly luminous beings, guardians of this place." Are we getting that back? We lost Chris. Okay, it's on here. Can we figure out what happened? Yeah. Maybe the presentation there? Yeah. No signal. That's very weird. All right. No. Technology is always an interesting factor. There he is, the man of the hour. He'll have it together in just a minute. So, it's a quote from Yogananda on the 5D star portal. "Grosser light vanishes into eternal rays of all-pervading cosmic joy. From joy we come, and from joy we live. In the sacred joy we melt." Paramahansa Yogananda. Okay, a little reset here. Oh yes, would you? That would be better. It just all started falling apart. Thank you. Well, live theater, you always have to be ready to just kind of like take it as it comes, right? So, as we're fixing that, anyway, I release and I let go. I let spirit run my life. And love. Shima, by the way, means love in Hopi. And then Shima More, I married More and I became Shima more love. So I try to live up to that, and we all have our moments where maybe we're not in that space as much, but I'm finding that more and more as I acknowledge the beauty and the love and the luminous beings around me, as I stay in that place within, that in fact I do attract that. And I think that every single person can do that. So I want to invite you to, what do you think? We're figuring it out. But so the next slide that we're going to take a look at is from 1888. And it's interesting because it's a slide that I've used in most of my presentations. And I think you'll recognize it when we get to it. Because it's kind of looking from the third dimensional world out into the mechanistic universe that exists, all that is. And when I was looking at some of the slides that I wanted to use, I was thinking of where heaven meets earth. And that is actually if you come to how many of you have been to Mount Shasta? All right. And much of the year, there's a banner that hangs off of the post throughout the little city, and it says, where heaven meets earth. And ironically, this particular slide that I used, that's what came up for where heaven meets earth. Never thought about it like that, but it's an interesting thing how that it all fits together. Okay, so we're going to just go on, and I thought I would use this. The slides will keep me on track. You'll have to just imagine a little bit more. And we'll look at them when we're able to get to them. So what we're going to do today is we're going to pierce that veil. You're going to see a little guy, kind of, the one that I mean, where he's like looking out in wonder at what else is there. Conscious Life Expo is like that. A lot of people come here for the first time, and they're just blown away because, this is a different world for a lot of people, although it is more and more coming into to more mainstream. And this year particularly, we're going to see how and why that's happening. So if we look at astrology, how many of you have your charts? Good. And can you actually, do you know what your rising sign is, and your sun sign, and your moon sign and stuff? Because, oh, right, yes, Chris. Okay, so we're going to go down here and get this view. Beautiful. All right, so you recognize this one? How many of you have seen this before? Right, I just love it. I use it, and then I realized it was from 1888, where heaven meets earth. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to pierce that veil like that little guy there, hopefully, and we're going to look out from beyond our three-dimensional everyday world. And I'm finding that in my own life, that's really happening more and more. And we're going to find out how it all relates to the sky and all of that. Okay, so so about 2017, right before Conscious Life Expo, I was on a radio show, and I was invited. Oops, is this still not working? Sorry here. Technology, we love you. It's not moving forward. There we go. Okay, I know how to do it now. All right, so we just experienced on Monday night a new moon. And this new moon, it's interesting because in February, there's no new moons in February per se, unless you're in New York, you could say it was like right after midnight. And there was two new moons in January and 2 new moons in March, none in February. So, new moon wishes. Who does their new moon wishes? All right, great. Well, when I started my radio show a couple of years ago, I did it for a couple of years, and I found that I started on the vernal equinox, which is the first day of spring, and the next week was the new moon. So I'd been doing new moon wishes for years and years, and I decided to share it with my audience. And so what I felt about the moon is, a lot of people don't believe in astrology. They don't know anything about it, and they think it's and they don't go any further than it being. Some people have said it's the gold standard of superstition in the minds of a lot of people. But what we're coming to find, and what more and more people are opening up to, is the reality of it. But the moon, there's the moon. You see it. It's right now we're in a crescent moon phase, and when the sun and the moon come together, is when we have the new moon. And actually, let's see here. And actually, there are 8 phases of the moon. Even if you look at a calendar, you'll always see 4 phases. You'll see the new moon and the first quarter, the full moon, and the last quarter. But there are 4 other phases that complete the whole cycle. And actually, all cycles are based on that particular cycle. So we're going to hear, there's actually another generation of astrologers and metaphysical people here that I love, and who are going to actually be doing a class on the moon manifestation. And I have taught that. I did a workshop for women, and the new moon it's the woman's time. It's the month. It's that 29-day cycle, and for a woman, that's like so much a part of who she is. So the moon is when we plant. It's based on like when you plant a seed. When you plant a seed and then you nurture it. We're in that phase right now of the nurturing phase. And I saw last night the crescent moon was out there. It was so beautiful. And then it'll grow into the half moon. And that's actually the first quarter. And so we're waxing now. That moon now is waxing. So the new moon is the time to plant your seeds. And so every new moon, you want to write them down. 10 new moon wishes. At least 1, but up to 10. And you'll just see, you just see the flow that starts to happen with that. And that's a way to bring in what you want. I've noticed a lot of people, and you've probably heard this as well, and maybe you've done it. I've certainly have through the years, where you hear people say, well, I don't want to be whatever, I don't want to gain weight, and so they keep gaining weight. Or I don't want to eat chocolate, and so they eat chocolate. Or I don't want to be angry, and they're angry all the time. And I realized many years ago that, so there's certain things in our lives that we don't want anymore, and how to say that in such a way that is, in the beginning was the word, right? So you want to say it in such a way that you are pulling in, that you're attracting what you want. Okay, so the universe can't hear a yes and a no at the same time. So I found myself learning to say, up until now, I felt XYZ, which meant up until this moment, I was depressed. I was whatever I was. now I'm in this moment. But if I say, I am this, like I like to say, I am Shima. Shima means love. It's an affirmation for me every time I say that. I am. And so your language is so, so important. Our language is so, so important. So if you can catch yourself, and sometimes, I'll share that with other people, and I'm happy if they kind of remind me sometimes if perhaps I've missed the mark with that. But I think we're all really getting better at it. Okay, now here, can you see this out there? For me, it's a lot of light shining on it, so I don't see it so well, but it says ancient Chinese astrology chart. And so it's funny because the last time we had our astrology panel, and Master Clarice Chang from Singapore, I had said to her before the panel, I said, oh, well, the only thing that I know is that Chinese astrology is based on the Jupiter cycle. And she had never thought about that. It's a 12-year cycle. And the Chinese astrology has 12 animals different than the zodiac of the Western astrology. But in the middle of the panel, she was, oh, yes, I didn't think that was true, but then I thought about it, and yes. So we talked about that yesterday. It was really kind of fun. But so the Chinese is a bit different, and we just had our Chinese New Year. How many people know what year this is in Chinese New Year? The tiger. The water tiger. Right, we've got our water tiger back there. Yes, and so we're going to, we'll be talking a little bit about that tomorrow. Very different. The Chinese, it's very different from the Western. But it's worthwhile to have a conversation that includes that. So here's a chart. Okay, and this is, most years back, the astrology chart was a square. But mostly now it's a circle. And if you do Indian or Vedic or Jyotish, they still use squares. But I love the circle. And you're going to see in some of the things that we talk about. The circle, I mean, here we are in the middle, right? And everything is around us. Astrology is kind of from it is a geocentric point of view. Some people do use other planets. They can use the sun-centered, but it's not really what I have really gravitated to. So if you would think, here's the circle of spirit, and here's the dot of our soul comes in. And if we're looking up at the sky, this would be the east. It's not like looking at a map, which is just the backwards of it. And the sun would rise here, and then it would go up to the top, and then it comes down at sunset. So we have noon and sunset and midnight, right? So a lot of people, they say, well, I'm a Taurus. It's like, okay. Well, when's your birthday? What year? Where were you born? What time were you born? They're kind of like, a lot of people don't know that. You want to find out what time you're born. Why? Well, because this changes a degree every 4 minutes. And so it changes the placement of where all the planets would fall in your chart. And each one of these areas is actually an important area of your life. And it tells a story. When we learn how to read the language of it, I sit there sometimes with numbers and just read. I'm just amazed sometimes. I can just sit there and occupy myself just looking at the numbers. Or I'll be thinking, and I wanted to actually find out how many people keep a journal. So, a little bit, yes. Well, I've been keeping a journal since I'm a little girl. And it's so helpful because as you learn astrology or as you learn different things, you can go back. And if you kept a journal, and I started with Dear Diary. Dear Diary, today I met so-and-so. And through the years, hopefully it's changed. But um, I find myself sometimes going back to 12 years ago, a Jupiter cycle, 29 years ago, a Saturn cycle, 52 years ago, and I'm not going to go any further than that, but a Chiron cycle, right? There's just all of these wonderful things. Uranus, Pluto, all of these planets, they come together, they square each other, they oppose each other, and each one of those things is a turning point in one's life. So if you keep a journal, so if you don't, that's fine. Start. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be anything other than feels comfortable to you. But just, and for me, I find sometimes it just projects me right back to that place 30 years ago. It's just mind-boggling. And I find it really very exciting. So I want to encourage you to consider that. I pushed the wrong button here. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see. See, I'm a Mac girl, and this is not a Mac, and so it's a little daunting sometimes. Okay, let's see if I can do it like this. All right. Perseverance furthers. Okay, so this kind of just shows you a little bit that this is east, and then these are where the planets would fall in one's chart. Okay, and if we looked at this, well, it kind of cut off a few things, so I can't look at the whole. We can't really look at the whole thing, but you can see when two planets come together, or just in the center, it gives you an indication of how those energies relate in your life. And when you connect with somebody else, you can find out how your energies connect. And actually, Kaylin Castell, who's a shamanic astrologer, who came in from Arizona to be with us, is going to be talking about Mercury. Now, Mercury just, what we call, astrologers call it station direct, which it means it's no longer retrograde, but I was actually looking at where it is, and it's stationary for a while. It's kind of like, it's like a pendulum, you know, that kind of like swings, and it stops, and then it comes back again. So when planets change directions, which Mercury does 3 times a year, and all the outer planets do for longer periods of time, when they do usually every year. The sun and moon are the only planets that don't change directions. But when they do, it means that they're closer to Earth. So their energy, that's why people talk about, oh, it's a Mercury retrograde. Well, they're feeling we feel Mercury's energy when it's closer to Earth. So that's kind of what happens there. But Mercury last night, it was like 8:50 something, 8:15 maybe. Last night, Mercury stopped in the sky on its path now going direct. Now, when a planet goes, it's an interesting thing. So here's Mercury. Mercury kind of like scoots around, you know, pretty quickly, 88-day cycle, I believe it is. And so, you know, it's usually like, it's how we communicate, and if you know what element somebody's Mercury is, you can sort of like have a sense of whether they're fiery, or whether they're kind of emotional, watery, or whether they're, you know, very intellectual, airy, or they're just very practical. Show me that. You know, if I don't see it, if it's not in 3D world. And so it helps you to really understand how to really talk with other people. So Caitlin is speaking on Sunday, I believe it is, and she's speaking on what you may not be hearing what I'm saying, because we hear from our own point of view, we can only hear from where we're at. But when we realize that, it gives us more permission and just allows that understanding, you know, we can just kind of like understand, oh, well, that's how that person is. And if we know that, then it can really help us to really communicate more with them. Okay, so our ascending or our rising sign. Okay, so if we were looking up at the sky, and you would see Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, and this is the ecliptic. This is the path that the sun and the moon and all the stars and all of the planets take around the Earth. And here's Earth. We're looking at Earth here. Okay, so that's the sky. And if we were, and remember we said that planets move, they rise in the east, they come up, they go down, and they go round, okay? And so we can kind of see, and where your sun is. So you might be a Taurus, but you might have your sun in the 12th house area over here, which makes you very different, makes you more Piscean, you know, and all the different areas. Or if your sun is straight up towards your midheaven, these 4 angles here, most powerful places in the chart. So where those planets fall, the time, and that's all based on the time of your birth, very important. Now if we look at, remember that blank wheel that we looked at before. So here's the ecliptic, here's all the constellations going through, and here's the houses, here's the birth chart superimposed upon that. Just to give you an idea, as above, so below. And it's, you know, when we start to actually go out into nature and look at the sky, and one of the things I really want to do up in Mount Shasta is up the mountain, up Ski Bowl, which you can only really drive up to a couple of months a year. Maybe last year it was only 2 months because of the fires. They shut it down. But it's one of my favorite places to watch the moonrise. There's usually a drumming circle, which is really nice. But right before the moon comes up, there's this glow, this silver glow on the mountain. And then right before it comes up, there's this golden glow. And then there's, of course, there's the rest of the sky out there. So it is just amazing, amazing to watch. So all of these things, you know, the Saturn, the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction last year, they came together like right on the winter solstice. And a lot of planets are coming together at these really powerful points. And hopefully we'll learn a little bit more about that this weekend. Okay, so back in the days of yore, they only used 7 planets. Any idea why they might have only used 7 planets beginning? They could see it with the naked eye, right? So Saturn was the end of the 3D world. That was it. Saturn was really as far out as they could see. And then, so just think about the world. All of a sudden, you know, centuries later, Uranus is the telescope is discovered, and lo and behold, there's Uranus, right? And then, oh, there's Neptune, and there's Pluto, and more, Chiron, and different asteroids and things that they're finding. But in the beginning, this is, we had the Earth in the middle. Remember we said it's geocentric. Of course, we know the sun is the middle of, right? The Copernicus revolution shifted everything. But we still think of the Earth, and the moon goes around the Earth, and then there's Mercury. And you could see the length of the cycles. And so just imagine if you know your cycles, like for instance, the nodes of the moon, where the moon, the circle of the moon and that ecliptic that all the planets go on, that the sun goes on, where they cross, very important, those are called the nodes of the moon. And they just shifted recently from the airy intellectual signs of Gemini, Sagittarius, to now they're in the practical earth signs of Taurus. They go backwards, they precess backwards, and they go into Taurus and Scorpio. So things are changing. There's a palpable change in the air. And Jupiter, the planet Jupiter, 12-year cycle, it just shifted now into Pisces. And coming up in April, we're going to have Jupiter and Neptune, which isn't even on here, they're going to come together in Pisces. And the irony is, Jupiter rules Pisces. Jupiter is very connected with Pisces in the old traditional astrology. And in the modern astrology, Neptune is connected with Pisces. And these two planets are coming together. And I forget how many years it's been for that, 700 in this, a long time. So we're not going to see it again. But it's a time of magic. It's a time of writing your dreams down. It's a time of really tuning in. And this is coming up April 12th. Now, you know, the big cycles, they don't just kind of like, okay, April 12th, it's over now. No, those are just kind of like touch points to really get things really started, or where we really feel them, and they can go on. And that's what the movie's about tomorrow night. The episode talks about how these cycles can last really for a long time. But I'm very hopeful now about the whole Piscean energy. Now, Pisces, Neptune, they can also be deceit. Excuse me a second. So, as wonderful, magical that Neptune and Pisces can be, it also can be deceit, fake news, all that kind of thing. So, just be aware. Okay, so this we're not even going to do because it turned on its side. Just like Uranus has a cycle like that. Its orbit is on the side. All the other planets are kind of like straight up. Uranus, which is the rebel, the eccentric, not surprising that Uranus would do that. Okay, so here's the zodiac. And you've got all the signs, and then you've got all the planets that are related to them. And then this also shows not only Jupiter connected with Pisces, but also Neptune. And the same with Saturn and Uranus. And if you look at it, the sun and the moon, Leo, we have the Leo king with us this weekend. So we have the sun, the moon, and then look, we've got Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. So right now, we're in Aquarius, but we're still in the Saturn energy. So we have all, and right now, if you look at a chart, you will see everything is in most things are in Saturn and Capricorn. It's a very, in Aquarius and Capricorn, it's a very Saturnian energy still. Okay, so what is this? Another circle. Well, I mentioned that years ago I got involved with the Stargate experience, which I'd been into meditation since the 70s. And I was invited, a friend of mine who I respect said to me, Shima, this will blow your mind. It's really quite amazing. And so early December 2013, they came to Marin, where I was living at the time. And this is a Stargate. It's a three-dimensional structure. And this is from the top down. And I always love this. And actually, I'm going to show you a little painting that I did in a little bit. But I started, this is what it looks like when it sits upon a table. And I wasn't able to bring one with me. Traveling on a plane, not my favorite thing in the world. I brought my ukulele, all these different things. It's just so hard traveling by plane when you're masked. But so this is what a Stargate looks like. And I like this image of it because to me, this is kind of like a way that you can really go through it. Now, these are all sizes. I've held a little Stargate in my hand. Stargates usually are like maybe about 5 feet in the center of a room. They raise the energy, helps to accelerate the energy. I've also been in a place where there's a Stargate that's like 10.5 feet. And it's like you walk in the room and it's like, whoa. We've actually had Stargates here at the Expo several years back. But and this is made, and they're made out of titanium and copper. And each of the planets, ironically, are also made out of, each of the planets are connected, and Venus is connected with copper. And there's a whole story about Cyprus and Venus, and I love the mythology of astrology. And there's just, people get bored. I don't know how people ever get bored. I never have enough time in the day. There's so much to discover. There's so much between the cosmos and our world. It's like a never-ending thing for sure. Okay, see, I can't really maneuver this as well as I'd like, but oh well, we'll deal with it. So, Alcazar is the guide for the Stargate, and I just love him. He's just, you are all doorways to other dimensions. You have just had the doorway firmly closed. It's time to open it. So it's not like it's outside of ourselves. It's really who we are. And these days, we are the portal. There's all these portals. And these days, there's more and more people around the world. And one of the things about, the whole COVID situation was that we all found that we really can connect online with people. And we did so many meditations, Stargate activations, that it was just, it was the same as being there. The energy was so powerful. So, there's always good. There's always good in everything. So here's the connection. So let's have a little experience of it. Now, usually when I do the Stargate, I play beautiful music by Robert Coxon, who I love, who's really beautiful, yes. And, but we're not going to do that today because it's just the whole technology thing is beyond me. So, but what I'd like you to do is just sit up in your chair, uncross your legs. Not that it really matters. You could lie on the floor. We always get really comfortable. I would find myself getting a little chilled when I did the Stargate. So, I'd have my blanket or whatever. So just take a breath. Let's take a breath. And call for the energy of the earth, of Gaia, to come up into our body, up into the soles of our feet, up into our body, up into the room. And just feel the energy. Just feel Gaia. We can just really call in all the energies around us. And we want to call in an etheric Stargate. So it's like taking that image of the Stargate that, if you had never seen a Stargate, you'd say, well, maybe think of a pyramid. Bring that energy in. But let's call forth the energy of an etheric Stargate. Just pulling in the etheric Stargate. We're going to activate that. We're going to bring it into the third dimension. We call for the activation of the Stargate. And just feel, just have it, just maybe be in it and just feel it around you. Just feeling that energy. We're going to let the energy, we're going to let it move faster and faster. And the frequencies and the vibration moving faster and faster from the third through the fourth and through the fifth dimension. And the dimensions are all here right now. Sixth And we go to the seventh dimension, and we're going to just wait. We're going to just pause for a moment there and allow our being, allow our body to really connect with that. And just tune in and allow yourself to just feel it. And there's nothing to do. There's no way that you have to be. There's no right way and wrong way. It's just these energies, these dimensions are all here, all right now. And it's just calling them and welcoming them in. And from the seventh dimension, we're going to feel the vibrations, the frequencies faster and faster, up into the seventh, the eighth, up into from the eighth through all the eighth into the ninth, the 10th, faster and faster, into the 11th, and finally, in the 12th dimension, we're going to pause and just stay there. And when we're in the 12th dimension, our being is in another space. And let's call for a strong 12th dimensional energy frequency. And each of us calling within ourselves. It's about our own, that's the only thing. It's just our own participation of calling for that energy, asking for that energy within us. And when we're in a 12th dimensional space, then we're more receptive. We're more receptive to the angelic realms. And we can call forth the angels, the angelic realm. And we call for the energy of the angels. And just feel. Invite them to come closer. Invite them to come near you. They're all just waiting there for you. The angels. Then we're going to call in the energy of the Blessed Mother, of Mary. You know, she's the feminine energy, the mother. Just call in whatever works for you. Okay, the mother, Mary, Maria, the divine feminine. Call her in. Then we're going to call in the energy of the Buddha. And what that feels like for you, the energy of the Buddha. We call for the energy of the Buddha. And each one of these, the angels, the Blessed Mother, the Buddha. Let's call in the energy of Lao Tzu, the Chinese energy. Lao Tzu and Chuanzi, his devotee. Feel that energy. And maybe we want to call in the energy of Saint Germain. Saint Germain is very, very present up in the mountain of Mount Shasta. Saint Germain. And just breathing into it, nothing to do. It's okay, you don't have to have any particular kind of experience to it. Just allow, each time it gets a little bit stronger, a little bit deeper. And then finally, let's call for the energy of our star families. Let's call for the Pleiades, They are the last star system to come to consciousness. And they are here for us. They are here to help humanity. So we call for the energy of the Pleiadians. And just feel they're more of a light form energy. Feel their energy. Beautiful. All right. And let's little by little just come back into the room. Feel your feet on the ground. Maybe wiggle your fingers. And just see if you feel a little shift in your seat. Just a little shift of being there. And these are things that you can call. I often just kind of like lie in bed and call for the energy of earth to ground me and bring in an etheric stargate. So these are things that we can do just anytime. Okay, so most of us recognize one or more of these people. Greg Braden is somebody who has been here many times. I love introducing. Greg, as a matter of fact, he was here in 2020, and he spoke for the first time. I'd never heard him speak about the battle for humanity's soul. And so much more that's coming out so much lately. William Henry, who's here, he speaks to that quite a bit, but I'd never heard Greg really address that. And so this is a time for us to really make conscious decisions about what we are attracting. What are we attracting? There's love, and then there's not love. Okay, so what is it that you want to attract into your life? So we have Greg Braden, Joe Dispenza, and Bruce Lipton all sitting in front of a Stargate at a Chiron event. And so it's been really beautiful to watch how people are really connecting with the Stargate. So here's that painting that I mentioned to you. And it's a freehand Stargate from the top down. And, you know, it's whatever it is, but there is certain energy that comes from here. You know, I wish it was a little bit more perfect sometimes, but the energy is just, I love it. It's hanging on my wall presently. Okay, so we've touched on astrology, we've touched on the Stargate, and here's another circle. Any idea what this might be? These are people dancing around musicians in the center, and they're dancing pan-eurythmy. And this, I think, is actually in the United States, but here's an image, and if you look closely, you can see, here's the circle. People come from around the world every August. I forget the exact, around the 18th of August. And this is called the Rila Mountains in Bulgaria. I've never been there. I'd never heard of it before I started really gravitating towards this movement. But it's the seven lakes, and it's magical and beautiful. And pan-eurythmy means pan for the whole cosmos. U is for the truth, the essence of things. And rhythmy conveys the idea of moving to the rhythm with special music. And this was all designed back in, well, Peter Dunoff lived from 1864 to 1944. So he lived in Bulgaria at a time when it was behind the Iron Curtain. So to dance this was like illegal. You couldn't dance it, right? It was all like really behind the scenes of everything. So very interesting, very interesting time. Let's see what happened here. Okay, so what I love about him, as I knew nothing about him when I started dancing this, it kind of reminded me more of Isadora Duncan, who I always loved and was always nature and that type of thing. But what I love about him is that he brought in astrology, geometry, he just brought it all in together, right? He didn't, I have found in my life that people would be like, oh, well, this is okay, but astrology, no, too woo-woo, right? Here was a man who was a spiritual man who embraced it all. I love that. So that really kind of endeared him to me for sure. And you can find really in many bookstores works on Peter Dunoff. As a matter of fact, I've got a book that on the cover, the introduction was done by Wayne Dyer, and on the cover it says a quote by Albert Einstein: "The world bows down to me, and I bow down to Master Peter Dunoff." So if you've never heard about him, you might want to check him out. So here's just another little circle there. I mean, you can see humanity seems to be kind of diminished in many ways in the beauty of nature. And I find sometimes, even when we're dancing inside in Mount Shasta during the winter, I just kind of like image being out there dancing in the mountain. And, oh, it's based on the 28 mansions of the moon. And the movement is, I was going to show you, but well, maybe I still will. We'll see. It's based on how the cosmos moves this way, right? Earth spins this way. So there's only one movement in the entire 28 movements that moves this way. It's based on 28 movements. The first 10 of them are awakening to the first day of spring and awakening the soul, really. And then there's energizing the spiritual centers in the body. And then the third set are based on spiritualizing the elements. And the only movement that goes clockwise, what we know as clockwise, is Earth. Everything else goes the other direction. I just found that so interesting, that the universe flows one way, but Earth, clockwise, three-dimensional time is money, all the things that lock us into the Earth, right? So this man was just amazing. He just really tuned it all in. And the music, and I thought I had actually copied my CD, but I didn't get the music that I wanted to do because I wanted to go through one of the steps of spiritualizing the elements, because there's a movement that's just bringing the sun up through your body and then bringing it out, sharing it with the world, and then bringing that glorious, gorgeous energy into your heart. And then you're opening up all the energy centers of your body, and then you're just giving it. And it's so beautiful. I mean, it really brings me to tears. And I always just see, like, how, and I'm so sorry that I didn't bring the music for you. But it didn't, I tell you, technology is not my thing. So here's a group of people. These are some of the people that I dance panurhythmy with, outside under this apple tree that has 3 different kinds of apples in somebody's backyard in Mount Shasta. And this lady here, in her mid-80s, she came to Mount Shasta. She travels around the world teaching panurhythmy. And when she came, she did like a 5-day workshop, and I just got this download. I said, "You're supposed to do this." I was like, you were supposed to do this. And it was like very foreign to me. It wasn't like, I mean, I liked it, and at the end of the workshop, they came up to me and said, "We really get that you're supposed to lead this." And suddenly I became the facilitator for panurhythmy, and that's when I started really learning really more about it. And my experience was that, and you can see there's all different shapes and sizes and ages of people here, and it's just beautiful. So people are really, really, really attracted to it. So I was designing a little logo for it, and I like the circle, and I like the quarters in the circle. It's just more and more coming into my life. And so I was just really attracted to this symbol. And then I created this joyfully balancing your body, mind, and spirit through harmonizing elements of heaven and earth. And that's where it came to me that I realized that Mount Shasta is about harmonize. It's about bringing together heaven and earth. And it all just, it didn't it all came together like that, which was really quite wonderful. And this is actually, I am going to show it to you. So this is just a little cloth that I use instead of having that band of musicians in the center of hundreds and hundreds of people. I just bring my little, beautiful little circle, lie it down in the middle of the gym, light a little candle, put it in the center, and then place the elements around it. So when we're doing our blessings, O kindly luminous beings, we're looking at the rising sun in the morning. And actually, I don't know if you've ever gone out and really felt the rising sun in the morning. But I've done that out in Mount Shasta, and for like the winter solstice and things. Like in the heart of winter, and just bundling up, and as long as you're dressed warm, everything's fine. But going out and feeling the sun on my hands, everything else is cold, but you feel the rays of the sun. Well, the Pan-Eurythmy people, Peter Dunoff, would take people up to the Ryla Mountains, and they would dance Pan-Eurythmy to the rising sun every morning. Amazing, powerful, powerful, powerful time. So, Mount Shasta, where heaven meets the earth. And it really truly is. And this is from Lake Siskiyou. But, the weather is changing so much. When I left, I took a photo, and this whole side of the mountain over here, it's basically, there's no snow. There's so little snow. It looks like it's June on the mountain. And this is not good for any of us, because Mount Shasta is like, the water comes from the Sacramento River. So please, pray for snow, rain, and we really need it. So I wanted to give you all a little gifts today. And if you have something to write down on, if not, you can email me and I will send this to you. But a couple of free things that are out there. There is this application that I discovered at our panel 2 years ago called The Pattern. And it was actually designed by Daniel Giammario, who is the founder of Shamanic Astrology Mystery School and the Shamanic Astrology Paradigm. And it doesn't have astrology speak in it at all. But every day, it's free. You can just kind of like, you send in your information, and very often you'll get a little thing about your pattern, and it's uncanny how it's you. I find, for me anyway. So it's called The Pattern. And then another application that I would recommend is Time Passages. And we had Henry Seltzer, who is an astrologer who created that at the Expo in 2020. And for your phone, and I think it's for Android and for iPhone, Time Passages, if you just do for yourself, it's free. If you wanted to do it for other people, it's like $30 or something, but I use it all the time. It's just wonderful. Yeah, and it will teach you as well if you need to learn. Beneath that is it's WOPG.org. And back in my first experience of, well, I wouldn't say it was actually my first experience, but I was initiated back into an experience called the knowledge. And basically it was 4 techniques to really keep one centered. And I remember thinking years ago, how do people exist without this? The world is like so, and this was back in the 70s, it's like the world was so crazy back then. How do people exist without having this grounding? So this is a place that you can go and get a lot of satsang, truth, holy company, and just beautiful, beautiful information. Next is the Stargate experience, and that's on YouTube. And that's what we looked at, the Stargate, and there's a lot of complementary meditations on there, and they go very deep and really beautiful. The next is Astrology Hub, and Rick Levine, who's here this weekend, he was doing a weekly update with the founder of Astrology Hub, and they offer so much in terms of, they have such a love of astrology that Amanda Poole Walsh She just gives so much out. There's a lot of classes that you could buy. They're pretty reasonable. But the weekly things are just, I really recommend it highly. Next is the paneurythmy.org. And you can find out more about paneurythmy there. And finally, your astrology curator. I started on Facebook, a page, I guess it's called, of just like taking, I have a lot of Gemini in me. My North Node is in Gemini, so I'm a communicator, and I find that I really type really fast on the computer. I'm a whiz. So I find myself, whenever I'm listening to a webinar, the way for me to really stay engrossed in it is to transcribe it. And so I sometimes post transcriptions that I do of things that I think are particularly relevant at your astrology curator. I feel there's so much energy out in the world for so many things that it's nice to have a little guidance. So that's what I do. I like to things that I think people really need to know about this. So your astrology curator on Facebook, and that's me. And you can reach me also at shimadivina@gmail. That's my mostly astrology and metaphysical email. And I have a website called shimamore.com, but it is really in need of upgrading. So I told you, technology is not my strong suit. But I tell you, I can sit at that computer all day long and transverse into worlds and just have one heck of a time. So I get what I need, and I kind of go by intuition with things more than, I had a boyfriend at one time, and he used to say to me, he was a Mac evangelist, and he would say, well, Shima, read the book. I said, well, why do I read the book? I've got you. But it doesn't last forever. And so now I'm having to just figure it out on my own. But somehow I tend to do it, but it's kind of like not the A to B method that most people use. In any event. So one of the things that I was thinking of doing, but it didn't really get on this last list here. If you'd like to know about the changing of the gods, if you go on YouTube and you just look at changing of the gods on YouTube, there's like a less than 3-minute trailer that is very, very evocative of what's going on. And if you, for some reason, can't make it tomorrow night, be sure and check that out. The changing of the gods, because here's the thing. As of Monday, I think Monday's the 7th, Monday, they are kind of like opening the gates. People these days like do all this wait list stuff, which seems to work. But they're going to do a wait list. They're starting registration on Monday. They're going to be showing it on, interesting timing this, February 22nd is when they're going to start showing it. And the primary cycle that they talk about is the Uranus-Pluto cycle that began in the 60s. Well, the thing is that the United States is having what's called, every year we have our birthday, our solar return. The sun comes back to the exact place where it was when we were born. And each one of the planets has their return. Well, Pluto, none of us are ever going to have a Pluto return. Not at this stage. I mean, I don't know, maybe humanity is going to expand into live 300 years or something. But Pluto has a 248-year cycle. So humans aren't going to experience it individually, but countries are. And guess what? The United States is coming up to its Pluto return. And what is that? Well, that's a lot of things. But Pluto, if it's not working, it's gone. So if you look around, Pluto in Capricorn. Capricorn is structure, government, authority, bureaucracy, just a lot of things that we see around us that are not working. And so Pluto coming back to roost is quite the time on that. So if you can't come tomorrow, be sure and check it out, YouTube, because they're going to show it free for 10 days. And then it's going to be gone, and then they're not quite sure what they're doing after that. But they've held control of it so that they could do it the way they want to. Because, once you sell rights to things, who knows? So anyway, so I wanted to give you a little overview of some things that you could do to really bring light in this world. I find myself in my own world up in Mount Shasta. Granted, it's a little easier. I come down here in traffic and people, and it's a whole thing. But you can do it anywhere. It's like being that lotus in the pond. When you're connected inside of yourself, it really doesn't matter what's happening on the outside. So I want to encourage you to do whatever it takes to connect on the inside. This weekend, you're going to get a lot of wonderful information. Stay connected to what feels right for you. Just don't think because somebody's up on stage that they have the right answer. You have the right answer right inside of you. And again, if you haven't been journaling, great time to start. New moon just happened. Things are growing. Wonderful time to begin anew. New moon, new Chinese calendar, Year of the Tiger. Very cool. So I want to thank you for coming today. I really appreciate it. For those of you who are enjoying the live stream, thank you very much. Hope to see you next year. And again, thanks for coming. And enjoy the Expo, Conscious Life Expo 2022. Wow, good to be back. Thank you.